Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today I'm joined by Mac Gardner, CFP, author and co-founder of the Four Money Bears and Berryville. Mac, welcome back to the podcast.
Tony, so good to see you, brother. Thank you for having me. Always enjoy when we get to spend a little time and talk about this whole world of financial education, man, financial literacy.
Always a pleasure to have you on, Mac. So, just to go over, tell us a little bit about your origin story and how it connected you to creating the Four Money Bears in Berryville.
Yeah, so fortunate, blessed to have served in this financial services industry for 25 plus years. It's getting close to that next decade, Tony. It's getting close, but been a CFP for some time. Really became passionate about financial education when I have my own practice with Raymond James. That's when I published my first book, Motivate Your Money. And then what happened was, as I would share these Mac nuggets, these little tidbits of financial education with clients, one of my clients came to me and said, "Hey, Mac, love what you did for big people. Would you be open to creating something for little people?" And that's how the Four Money Bears book came to be. It's a tool really created for parents with young kids, so sort of K through 5 age range, that are looking for an easy, fun, enjoyable way to start the conversation about money and what their options are: spending, saving, investing, or giving. Only four things you do with money, hence the Four Money Bears.
Well, that's awesome. And, I've been a fan of the book. We've had lots of conversations, and just as full disclosure, but you watching and listening, I am an investor in the Four Money Bears. That's how much I believe in it. So, tell us a little bit about the new venture. What is Berryville and how does that extend the universe of are we going to call it the Four Money Bears universe?
Well, we're actually going to be expanding. It is called Berryville. So the genesis behind Berryville was actually quite interesting. The book took on a life of its own. Folks like yourself, financial professionals, CFPs, advisors across the country really started adopting my book as a tool to help parents with young kids start the conversation about money early. And a refrain that we would often get back is, "Hey, Mac, love the book. Kids still love reading books, but now young people are learning on these things nowadays. Is it possible to create a digital platform?" And Ryan Galini, my partner, and I, who connected through some work that we did with E-Money Advisor many years ago, Ryan, whose company is Game Design, and myself being a CFP and being the author, said, "Hey, look, let's create a digital financial education platform. Let's meet these young people where they are, right? And let's call it Berryville." So it's the Four Money Bears Berryville. And it is a platform, a gamified platform that really starts the conversation early. It allows a child or an adult, grown people can play the game too, to really start those experiences, those connections with money at an early age, and really almost like a digital lemonade stand is what I'd call it. That.
I love that. And I've checked it out. Although I have to tell you I think it's partially my age. I couldn't get super far on some things. I was getting stuck. So, it's a great UE and it looks fantastic. And
So it's funny that you say that. We intentionally made it a free-flowing game that you can roam around this bear village. I think one of the big issues that our industry, when it comes to financial education, has is it makes a lot of the financial education, financial literacy stuff pretty boring. It's very educational and it's very formal. And so when I started FinLit Tech, right? Which our mission is to build a bridge between financial literacy and financial technology. The idea, first and foremost, was to make sure that if we are going to create any sort of financial education game, it cannot look, smell, taste, or get any sort of feeling initially. Once the user starts playing, especially kids, they can smell that stuff. It needs to be fun. It needs to be something that they want to keep going back to. They want to learn how to make money. So the premise of the game is you actually are running a berry stand, right? And a
Hmm.
berry shop, and you can sell, wood and rocks and berries and all these different things, and you interact with all these people, and there's a mayor, and you have to get a business license. So it's a really free form game that just allows you to be a merchant, sell your stuff, but then also pepper in some of these terms like what's interest, what's a savings account, or what's a checking account, all these different things where the child looks at the parent and says, "Hey, what's this mean?" And then that's where things get really connected.
Well, and I think that's been a huge thing that's been missing in financial literacy is context. And I think that's because nobody wants to watch a 401k video, myself included. I mean, it's boring. I got to do it sometimes for CE or something like that, but
Mhm.
just watching those things. And then we expect consumers and kids to get interested in watching them. So, it's great because, as you talk through it, as I start thinking about like, what are those games where you build like a theme park and you have to sell
Oh,
tickets and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that's the way people are engaging and they're thinking, I mean, SimCity, it's city planning.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if
My
you
wife's a
said,
huge
do you
fan,
want
by
to,
the way. Huge fan.
yeah, who wants to play a game about city planning? But that's what SimCity is. And it's been one of the biggest games or franchises of all time.
For sure, for sure. And we are intentionally making the Berryville experience fun. Um, you get to bake pies, you get to make jams, you get to explore this world, this village of bears and really, really cool characters that are in there. But you're also getting the analogy I like to use is, kids with broccoli. And you sprinkle a little cheese on it, you put some seasoning on it, all of a sudden it becomes palatable. It becomes, okay, this isn't too bad. So if we can make the financial education experience fun, but yet rewarding, we think some really cool things can happen.
I love that. Financial education needs to be fun and rewarding. I think you know Bernadette Joy, right?
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
know her? Yeah, she coined the phrase financial fluency,
Mhm.
and which I absolutely love is, that's the other thing too, is it's like learning a new language. And so, like you said, as you wander around Berryville and you talk to different I guess characters,
Yep.
for lack
Yep.
of a better word, is
Mhm.
they're teaching you along the way, but it's still in context of like the tasks, like you say, is getting a business permit, um, or you know, selling your berries and all those other things. So I think that this is a way we're going to help people become financially literate is through initiatives like Berryville is like help them learn how to speak money instead of just forcing it down their throats.
Yeah. And one of the cool things about when we developed Berryville and we started really looking at where this thing could go, or what it could progress to, is the game currently is sitting on sort of a K through 5 chassis, right? But the basic premise of it is it's a farming simulator. It's a business simulator, right? That allows us to plug in or place the tracks for, let's say, middle school content, or let's say high school content. Because I think as of this recording, Tony, I think there are about 30 states now that require some sort of financial literacy before you graduate high school. And though we are huge proponents of the fact that the financial education process needs to start way earlier than that, right? K through 5, age 7, we do know, or we do see that there is this need for states, cities to have some sort of digital platform that allows you to teach analyze, and track financial education and financial literacy, which is in essence what our game does. It teaches financial literacy, financial education. It analyzes. We use something adaptive learning, right? To really analyze what's going on with that player. If they're not doing enough savings, they get more savings types of things to do in the game, and then it tracks that progress because the next development is going to be a web-based interface where the parent can look and say, hey, how is this kid doing with these things? XYZ, how are they learning about this? How are they learning about this? So the idea here with Berryville, having the game is awesome. It's loaded. Folks can go play it, give it to their kids to play and have fun. But the long game here is to be able to have a tool that can teach, analyze, and track financial education over the long term.
Yeah, I love it. And the thing I like about the adaptive learning is, thinking back, I mean, you and I are both hoop heads, is,
Mhm.
when I was playing hoops, is that was the thing, is you worked on the weak part of your game.
Yeah.
You don't keep working. Look, kids love shooting three pointers,
Yeah, I've got an 11-year-old. It's yeah, same thing.
yeah, when I was coaching, I'm like, why are you guys shooting three pointers? You can't even shoot a two-pointer. But anyway, that's a whole
The
other
MIDI, hit
topic.
the MIDI.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh my gosh. But, it's that adaptive learning is you have to work on the weak points of your game. And so I think that's really a strength that's built in the platform. So, let's talk about kids and financial literacy. Why do you believe financial literacy starts at home?
You know, um, did a lot of research writing this book. The book, if you asked me years ago, we published this book 10 years ago, by the way. So amazingly,
Oh,
it's been a
wow.
decade since the For Money Beers has existed. If you asked me 10 years ago when I was putting this thing together that we would have global book sales, Canada, Germany, Britain, like I looked at you and laughed. And I think the reason why the book has become so popular is because there are tons of parents out there that never got this education, but realized that if they had gotten it early in their lives, how much different they would have been. And we find that a lot of things are socialized, Tony. So language, socialized, very early age.
Mm.
Food, socialized, very early age. Religion, socialized, very early age. But something like financial education isn't. However, if it was, what could that young person accomplish in their life? What could then that household accomplish in its life? What could that community accomplish in its life? So I think outside of the, research that's been done, and a lot of people quote the Cambridge study that shows that a child's connectivity with money starts at age 7, and that's really when it should start. I think it just allows the earlier you can inject knowledge about finances and financial education into a person's life, it gives them a longer runway for their money to work for them.
I
And
love it.
home is probably the best place to get that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the other thing that it makes me think of too is generational wealth gaps and
Mhm.
things like that is that a lot of people just don't have money conversations at home because, like you said, is their parents never learned about money. So, you're starting at a deficit. So, this does democratize
Mhm.
financial literacy by making it accessible to everyone. So, how does Berryville actually make financial education stick? Because we've talked about the learning and the context, but what actually makes kids like remember it, because we know kids kind of get excited when they move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that makes Berryville different and unique is we both know, Tony, that if you Google financial education, financial literacy, there's literally droves of stuff out there, like literal stuff. The issue with financial education, in my humble opinion, isn't that there isn't enough education. There are not enough implementation resources that allow the person to do the things with the money on a regular basis. You see what I'm saying? And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's the neat thing about Berryville is that we've built this business simulator ecosystem where this player, young or old, is continually engaging with money, continually learning new terms, so much so that I remember giving it to my 11-year-old. I was like, hey, bud, this is gonna be the test. I put on the iPad, I dropped it in front of him, and I was like, all right. 4 hours later, yeah, 4 hours later, and coming to me and asking questions. Oh, Papa, what does this mean? Oh, Papa, what does that mean? And to your point, Tony, our children will be fortunate to hear some of these terms because they grew up in a household where dad was a financial professional and they know what a 401k is and IRA stock is. But so many kids don't. So many kids don't. And so that's how we believe the Berryville game can be a game changer. I heard an amazing stat, Tony. You may have heard this. I may have shared it with you before. Someone said that you can almost guarantee a person whether a person will have financial success or not in their life simply based on the zip code they grow up
I've heard that. And it's sad. I
in.
think, that there's a lot of us who are working on that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's very true. And it gets back to what we were talking about. If you grew up around money and with money,
Mhm.
you know what a loan is. You may or may not know, but your parents may have bought you stock, things like that, because a lot of, we think everybody owns stock, and now more people own stock than ever before. But most
Still
people
not
still
knowing
don't
that.
understand,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
stock that they're buying. So
So
having
imagine,
that
Tony,
knowledge.
imagine if you could drop a game into a community, underserved, overlooked, not talking black, white, Hispanic, just an underserved, overlooked community. Drop a game and imagine what could potentially happen if, because the kids in that community started playing this game from a very early age, how that could materially impact generations. Because now, here's the cool thing. We are so fortunate, Tony. We're old heads where, if you wanted to buy a stock a few years ago, you needed to go to a broker and they needed to charge you some exorbitant amount of money. And then, maybe you got a paper stocker, but you can literally buy $5 worth of Coca-Cola, Starbucks. You've got all these platforms now where it's not just talking to young people about stuff. For money bears, perfect example. Spender bear, saver bear, investor bear, giver bear. A parent can now talk to a child about investing. Go on their phone, Tony. Set up a UGMA account, a minor account. Put $50 in it and say, hey, go buy something with this. Go own something with it. That's huge. The technology is there. Sadly, there's just not enough technology on the education side. Lots of technology to help you do stuff with your money, not a lot teaching you what to do with it.
Yeah, and I think that's been a whole mismatch. And you talk about the droves of financial education material out there. Yet study after study shows that overall financial literacy hasn't really moved either in the US or globally. So it's like
Yeah.
you're talking about is like that implementation is a whole different way of looking at it. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience who are in the financial literacy community. So this is something to think about as you're delivering your programs is like, how are people implementing it? How are they retaining it?
Yeah.
And how, what's the context that you're providing those programs and services? So, Mac, before we start to wrap up, obviously Berryville is built around entrepreneurship. Why do you believe that the fundamentals of entrepreneurship are key to financial education?
So I think a lot more young people are not aware that that first little business they start, right? That entrepreneurship exercise is literally the seed stage of owning equities, of investing. They don't make that connection that, hey, that Nike store company that love the shoes and cool brands and all these stars are associated with it. I like to say that every oak tree was one point an acorn, right? It had to start somewhere. That was the idea. Phil Knight and a bunch of buddies decided to start a business. They were entrepreneurs. They started something that eventually became this massive thing. Every small cap, then eventually becomes a mid cap, and becomes a large cap, and we're talking capitalization, all that stuff. But I think the seed of entrepreneurship is something that one, a lot of young people can relate to because you're young, you want to put
Mhm.
a lemonade stand, you go out and you get your water and your sugar and your lemonade and you start selling stuff. And that for a lot of young people is that first entree into their connectivity with money outside of getting allowance for stuff. So we thought it would be really important to make entrepreneurship, right? How money is earned be as important, two sides to every coin, right? As what to do with the money when you have it, which is that financial education side. And that's what we were able to do with Berryville is to put both of those experiences into one fun game, financial literacy as we call it, where you're learning something, you're learning how to run a business, you're learning how to deal with the money on both sides of the fence, how to make it and what to do once you have it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something that we don't talk enough about is how money is earned and how to earn more money is, it's the basic equation. If you're struggling with your lifestyle, you can reduce expenses, but you can only do that to a certain amount is the money you earn is what can make a difference in your lifestyle. So that's so important is for people to understand that there are different ways that anybody can be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter whether you grew up, like you said, with what zip code you grew up with, anybody can be an entrepreneur. So
Just to
that's
find a need, find a service, find a good. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. You got to find a need, find a service, and there are different ways to earn money,
Mhm.
um, as well. So it's great that that's something that you really centered the game around. So obviously with Finlit Tech, it's building that bridge. Is why do you think that we need to build the bridge, or what do you think's missing from financial literacy and financial technology working together? What's been the mismatch?
Um, I think there's been, again, I mentioned this earlier. I think there in fintech, there's this big focus on what is being built out there to do things with money.
Mhm.
Banking, investing, insurance, a loan. Like you can do so many things on your device that you couldn't do 5, 10 years ago when it comes to, managing and dealing with your money. Sadly, Tony, there's just not as much attention being placed on the education side of it as to tools to help people better manage their financial affairs. Money touches so many different things in our lives, and I am waiting for the day where things like Berryville, we want to be the leaders in the space. Trust me, we definitely want to be there, but it's not such an anomaly where there's a lot of different really cool, neat ways to teach people what to do with money, um, so that they can be better consumers, more educated when it comes to what needs to be done because they understand the value. I'll quickly talk about the three R's when it comes to money and our relationship with it. Right. So you're young, someone puts a $20 bill in your hand, and you realize, hey, this is money. Hey, money. The second R is you recognize. Okay, I recognize if I have this $20 bill, I can do something with it. And for most people, the recognition of the function of money is spend and save. Literally, those two. The third R is you start to rationalize, Tony. So if you realize, recognize, and once your recognition now opens up to one, two, three, I can do four things with money. I'm now more educated with what my options are, right? Imagine now how that person rationalizes how to use money and how they can use it to empower themselves, their family, reach whatever goals they have. So that's the one mismatch I think that's still out there is that there's a bunch of stuff fintech being created to do stuff with your money, but not enough to teach you what to do with it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I know that a lot of the education companies have also struggled to be successful. And a lot of those platforms have vanished or been, you know, ingested into these bigger entities. So, it does require us to think differently about the types of platforms.
Mhm.
And again, to place it in a context. Um, so, Matt, to wrap up, I have what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. These are three quick questions I ask all my guests. We haven't done this because we've always done panels. So, you're on the hot spot
There
now.
we go. Hit me.
The first one is, what's one money myth you're trying to break?
That you have to be an adult to understand it. That you have to be an adult and that you have to have a lot of it. So it's kind of two. Money is it's you don't have to have a lot of it, and you can learn about money from an early start.
I love that. And I think that's something that sometimes people think is they don't have enough money and that, that they shouldn't, learn about these things. But that's how you move forward is by learning. Even if you can't invest, like you said, is you can invest $5 in a
Yeah,
share of stock if you want to. And that's a start.
yeah. Habits, behaviors, traits. Good habits become good financial behaviors, could become good financial traits. And the earlier you can start those habits,
Yeah, I love that. The earlier you can start the habits. So let's get out the time machine for a minute.
right?
If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money, what would you tell your younger self?
Buy a boatload of Apple stock, like a boatload of
Okay.
Apple stock. Now, and the reason why I say that is because I grew up, I was in high school, I was one of those computer geeks, and I wrote, Pascal, and I wrote BASIC and the if then go to and all that stuff. And so I remember working on this Apple. I had an uncle that was a huge Apple oh man, this is blah, 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 blah. And I remember when people were like pouring dirt on Apple's grave, man. Like
Oh yeah.
Apple is going out of business. Oh, da, da, da. And so I was still a little bit too young. There weren't any cool apps for me to go ahead and purchase stock then, but buy a lot of Apple and buy a lot of Marvel comic. I'm a big comic guy too. I wish I bought more.
Yeah, comic books, you can make some real money or Pokemon cards. But, it made me laugh is because I remember, talking with a friend when Amazon first was out and he was trying to get me to invest. He was like totally invested. I'm like, that's stupid. An online bookstore, that's never going to be successful. You know?
All right.
I guess I
Yeah.
was a little wrong on that
Hey,
one.
a little off, a little off. It happened. It
We could all have a bad day.
happened.
So final question, Mac, is what's your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
Um, the number one tip, it's a tough one, but I'm gonna say it. Um, keep learning. Keep learning about it. Our industry changes so much, Tony, so much. That's why you joked, you said continuing education that you got to do. So even for folks that are in this business, it changes so much. I think for the common person who isn't in this business, you have to want to learn about this space. And so if you make it a habit of ingesting a little bit every day about some aspect of personal finance, right? There's banking, there's investing, there's insurance, there's trust, there's so many things in this space. But if you keep learning or trying to learn or keep an open mind or stay curious, as I like to say, about finances and money management, I think that's probably one of the top things I would suggest.
Yeah, I love that. Stay curious. That's, our friend Faith Teope, that's what she talks about is get
Mhm.
curious,
Mhm.
which I absolutely love is, stay curious. And as you point out, it's like this stuff is ever evolving. There's new products, new services, but the basics
Mhm.
for money bears don't change. They're always there. So if you learn the basics, you don't have to go learn everything. You
Yeah.
don't have to learn about Roth IRAs or, how to diversify. I mean, that's all good stuff to know at some point, but know how to save, know how to
Yeah.
spend,
Yeah.
know how
How to
debt
invest
works.
and know why giving is important. I mean, spender bear, saver bear, investor bear, and giver bear. And And what's funny, a little quick tangent, but it's one of the funniest things I think the takeaways from that book is how when a parent reads it with their child, and as I say, they have several children, how the personalities that children will pick up where parents like, oh, yeah, I've got a spender bear in my hand, or I've got a saver bear on my
Yeah.
hand, or I've got a giver bear. So I think that's a pretty cool thing too. So for those of you that are out there who are in this business or maybe not in this business or watching this, it's a really cool experience to see what sort of money persona your child has. Even though they all came up in the same house, they got all different ways of looking at money.
Oh yeah, kids can be very different. So Mac, where can people learn more about you? Where can they pick up their very own copy of The Four Money Bears and check out Berryville the game?
Like you just mentioned, our buddy Jeff Bezos has this cool platform out that some of you may have heard of.
He
Called
actually succeeded with it.
Amazon. Yeah, so you can find the book on Amazon. There's original OG, The Four Money Bears, but we've also released a new book that partners with the game. All right, so we're building out a full ecosystem for Berryville where you're going to have the game, you're going to have the first book, we're going to have a series of books, we're going to have some really cool PDFs and resources that are going to be available to families as well. So Amazon's the best place. You can go to www.thefourmoneybears.com.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, if you have access to the show notes, all these links will be in the show notes, so you can go check out all the stuff. So Mac, thanks for joining us on the Get Ready Before Life Happens podcast.
Tony, whenever you call, I will answer, brother. Thanks for having me again, man, and thank you for supporting our Teach Kids Money mission. And as I love to say at the end, the journey continues.
Yeah, I love that. I almost feel like saying that, but I don't want to steal your line.
It does, though. It literally does. Someone asked me, like, Mac, how'd you come up with that? I was like, it's all about the journey. We
Yes.
have a finite amount of time on this little speck of dirt, man. Speck of dirt. So, every day we get to wake up and make an impact in someone else's life. It's a journey, and I feel blessed to be on this journey and feel blessed to have folks like you in the circle, man. So that's why I always say the journey continues.
Yeah, no, and I love it, and appreciate you coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning into this episode of Get Ready Before Life Happens. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share it with a friend. You can also go to my website at tonystewart.com to join the Get Ready movement. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.